bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go! And welcome to a tough Tuesday here on Birds 365. 24 hours after we last convened, and the pain is still pretty significant. At least that's what I'm getting from Eagles fans that I talked to last night on WIP and on my social media. Hasn't subsided just yet, John.
Got to turn the page, Jody. Turn it. Flush it.
I know that's everybody's stance at this time, and I certainly hope that they can do it. The Eagle players, coaches, everyone directly associated with the team, us who are on the outside looking in, not as pressing a need. So you handle it the way that you handle it. And I think you just let your emotions be what they're going to be. But you buying that when Nick Sirianni says it? You think it's just that easy? All right, we flush it. We've moved on. It's almost as if it didn't happen. These are good words, but are they actually something that you can make happen?
I always talk about human nature. There's a human nature aspect to it, but yeah, I think in general it's much easier for the team and the players because they do have to turn the page. I mean, they're right on to the next thing. It's, the fans, they don't have to prepare for Dallas. They're just going to show up and flick on the TV or travel if people are going down there. And they'll be ready to go on the weekend. So they have a lot more time. The Eagles have to turn the page and make adjustments and try to fit a new player in and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of hard to stick on one thing if you're actually on a team in the NFL because things do move so quickly. So in a lot of ways, it kind of takes care of itself.
And one thing I'll say about this particular team, the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles, they were 10-1 coming into the game, now 10-2. They didn't linger over previous wins. And there was a couple that you could have lingered over, some that you kind of just shook your head and said, all right, we won. That's a good thing. And knew that it wasn't exactly the way it was supposed to be, but a win is a win is a win. That they haven't shown that this year. This isn't a team that a game, good or bad, sticks with them. They have shown the ability to just, as you just said, turn the page, and it's probably more necessary this week than any other week. Or is it? I was thinking about this morning when I was prepping for the show. This is only the second time the Eagles have had to turn the page after a loss. The previous one, of course, was to the Jets. And that was tough to swallow, too, for a very different reason. This one was because so much emotion was tied to it, that this game was as important as it was with the 49ers, legitimate contenders to be the number one team in the NFC. Jets were just bad. Jets were a Zach Wilson-led squad that when you went up and down the rosters, you go, all right, Philadelphia, you got to win this game. I did. Before the season started, I picked the Jets. No Aaron Rodgers, I picked the Eagles, and we both were wrong about that one. Which was a more bitter pill to swallow? Jet loss, 49er loss.
Oh, I think the 49er loss, as you mentioned with the Jets, and truthfully, they kind of know they beat themselves. So, that one's kind of easy to dust yourself off of and say, just don't do stupid things and you're probably going to win the game. This one, they got smacked. They got smacked. They got punched in the face. They got outplayed. They got out physical. They got outperformed, and they're not used to that. For the past 2 years, I mean, it generally doesn't happen. Even when they do lose, like the Super Bowl, they're in the game and they're fighting. They weren't in that game. They got routed. They got handled, and they are not used to that. So to me, that's the most interesting part of it because it's been a long time. I think you got to go back to the playoff game. Marcus mentioned it. I meant to look. In Tampa when it was 31-0, they got handled.
Yep.
But they weren't supposed to be good back then. They were a surprise playoff team. That was a surprise early step against a still Tom Brady led team. So even that, I don't think has the same import as this because they thought they were the best team in the league, and San Francisco stepped into their own building, which is usually a house of horrors for opposing teams. And they said, we're going to beat the you-know-what out of you. And they beat the you-know-what out of them. That's bottom line.
So that lends itself to a pretty good question. We're right back to where we started 6 minutes ago, turning the page. They're not used to turning this page. Turning a page is one thing. Turning a page after you look at the page before you turn it. Oh, my God, we got crushed. Oh, my God, we got smacked around. Oh, my God, we got dominated. That doesn't happen to this group of Philadelphia Eagles. So, again, I'll return to good words. I understand Nick Sirianni's going to say him, and all the players are going to say him. Easier said than done. It just isn't a loss. This was an embarrassing loss. Does that make it that much more difficult to turn a page?
I think it's easier said than done for some of the young players, especially some of the young players from, Georgia and Alabama who are used to winning every week, and they come to the NFL and they keep winning, and, they don't know how the other half lives. I think it's a lot easier for the Kelseys and Brandons and Lanes and Fletchers of the world who have been through it all. They've seen the ups, they've seen the downs, they've seen how this league can humble you very quickly. Jalen Carter was talking about, you're not used to it. He got frustrated. You don't know what losing is. And to get beat by like that, Jordan Davis, Devontae Smith, on and on and on. There's so many Georgia and Alabama guys on this team, but yeah, we're going to have to see. And the good thing is they got another tough test. This is the game of the year. We can officially say this is the game of the year. We can officially say it because if they win this game, there's a number of things. Basically, they win the division. They got a nice inside track to the number one seed, unless they pull the Jets again over the final 3 weeks and lose to the Giants or the Cardinals. So you win the division. You're in really, really good position to get the number one seed. You stop a 14-game winning streak by Dallas at home. So you send a message to them, sort of like San Francisco just did to you. We don't care. We're going to come into your place that you've dominated. We're going to beat you. This is the game of the year and the rivalry aspect of it. This is the game of the year. Not Kansas City, not Buffalo, not San Francisco. This is the official game of the year. And if the Eagles can win it, it means a lot.
Right. And if I said it once last week, I said it 20 some odd times. Last week was the game of the year to that point. And then you continue to play. And if a game surpasses it, it becomes the game of the year. I firmly believe last week going into San Francisco, it was the game of the year. But now you're right. The game of the year becomes the Dallas game. And not just for the Eagles. And this is probably going to sound braggadocious, but I firmly believe it for the entire National Football League. Last week was the game of the year, not for the birds, in the NFL. And I believe this week, Dallas against Philadelphia, Sunday night football, prime time. What's at stake? It's a game of the year again. That's what happens when you're 10-1, now 10-2, and you've got the best record, and you were in the Super Bowl last year. Yeah, you're going to be the focus of the National Football League, and the Eagles are. The focus was pretty bright lights last week, and the Eagles shrunk. We now have to see if they can jump back up to the status they had before San Francisco put a beat down on them. All right, 11 minutes into the show, we haven't mentioned the newest Philadelphia Eagle. You and I were texting yesterday about a different subject, and you said to me, I take you've seen that they've signed Shaq Leonard, and I was very busy doing something yesterday morning, so I didn't even know. I hadn't heard, so I had to go look up the official announcements, and it was just notes by guys like Schefter and the like that he would come to an agreement with the Eagles. No details on the contract yet, but he does get signed by Monday, which tells me if he has a good couple of practices or walkthroughs, tomorrow will be a walkthrough, right? But it's got to be Wednesday walkthrough.
Yeah, they're walking through tomorrow.
That should come as a surprise to absolutely no one. You think Leonard will be up and ready to play by Sunday against the Cowboys, right?
Yeah, Nick said we'll see, but no, I think he's going to play. Yeah, we've seen it in the past, and I always, the Kevin Byard example versus the Bradley Roby example. Kevin was playing, Bradley wasn't, so you had a little bit more of a ramp-up period for Bradley. Shaq has been playing a couple weeks off, but he's been playing. So, yeah, and you add into the fact that the linebackers are coming off such a poor game. That factors into it as well. He'll certainly be out there. Will he be out there for the majority of the snaps? That's the biggest question. It'll be interesting to see how they handle because I don't think Zach Cunningham's going to play this week, but we'll see. We haven't even gotten to Wednesday. And an estimated injury reports. Frank Alcantara had a high ankle sprain. I mean, by all circumstances, he should have been out longer, but he was back last week, so you never know. But I don't like the odds of Zach Cunningham playing. And if he doesn't, who's going to play the most snaps at linebacker? Is it going to be Nick Morrow? Is it going to be Shaq Leonard? You're coming off that Nick Morrow game. The shoe dropped. Man, did the shoe drop. I don't know if that's a good one, dropping for the Eagles, because, as I said, Nick Morrow was playing pretty well, I would say, overall. And that ended against San Francisco. And they really took advantage of him in the passing game. He was the main culprit for all the yards after catch. The numbers, Jody, are insane. The yards after catch. I think they had 315 or something, 214. And I'll look it up. We're after the catch. That's unbelievable. And most of them are against Nick Morrow in coverage. So are you going to go back to Nick Morrow? I don't know. You might have to.
And those numbers being as slanted as you just gave, is that not an indictment on Deshaun Desai?
I think so.
They got caught in those coverages, that the 49ers were able to isolate the guy that Nick Morrow was going against, and we get him the football, watch him turn it upfield, and several times get all the way to the house. You and I get into a fun little debate about the halftime adjustments. I know we all get nobody goes into a blackboard and writes anything down, but even in just Sean Desai's mind, him making the adjustments himself for what he's going to strategize and put them out there on the field to do. Apparently, he lost the mojo and the ability to do that, because it only got worse in the second half than it did in the first half. After the first time that Morrow gets beaten as badly as he does, don't you have to adjust? It was Debo mostly. I know Morrow's got to cover somebody out of the backfield, but I guess that they could have just kept going to the guy that they did. That was a pretty poor job by not only the Eagles, but the Eagle coaching staff, in my estimation.
No, I agree. On one hand, what do you do though? Who else do you have? I mean, that's kind of fair. He's almost got to be out, right? I mean, but so 151 yards after the catch on Nick Morrow. 151 on a linebacker. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
And a lot of those are Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
What is Nick Morrow doing covering Deebo Samuel?
Well, it's not, obviously the Eagles play a lot of matchup zone, which some people call man. It's got man principles, but it's really a zone coverage. You take the bubble screen would be the best example. Is that really only Nick Morrow? No, but they probably blamed it on Nick Morrow. They definitely did, looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
Probably because he was the closest. But yeah, there's more to it. And it was the defense as a whole. Like, I mean, the passer rating against Morrow was 156.3, which if you're around the NFL, perfect is 158.3. By the way, the passer rating against Eli Ricks, 158.3. I mean, I always say it's players first. I'm not going to sit here. A lot of fans always like to blame the coaches and don't like to blame the players because they don't want to criticize their own players.
But they'll criticize their own coaches, which I think is funny.
I know. Players first, players first, players first, I always say. And they didn't play well. But could Sean have done some different things to help them? Yeah, I think that's fair.
I did not have a very good game. I just want to make this one note. I see Tommy Lawler, our buddy from inside the Eagles, is going to jump in with us in just a sec. If it makes you feel any better, Eagles fans, and I'm trying here for you guys, I really am. The Eagles weren't the only team to get upset this weekend. Not a good weekend for either current and or ex-Eagles coaches. Andy Reid got picked off Sunday night in Green Bay against the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love is coming around a little bit. I watched.
I was on that Jordan Love trade. I left it. I stepped off, but I'm back on.
Okay, good job jumping back on. I was off, and I'm still not 100% back, but I gotta admit,
they got a couple breaks. By the way, for the officiating people, sorry, Jody, but like Kansas City got screwed all year. I hear Kansas City gets this, Kansas City gets that, Kansas City blah blah blah. Well, they got screwed in Green Bay. I mean, obvious pass interference wasn't called. So control what you control. Some calls are going to go your way, some calls aren't. Even if you're Kansas City, Philadelphia, it happens to everybody, and it happened to Patrick Mahomes. And by the way, to his credit, Patrick Mahomes said, I'd rather they let us play than the alternative.
And I, too, want to give Mahomes credit because he said what he said. But part of it was Kansas City had just gotten a real good call that looked to be a mistake call prior to. That's the pass interference was the bigger of the two calls. So they got one and they lost one and they lost the bigger one. And you'd, of course, complain about it. But Mahomes said, yeah, come on, we got to play. It's up to us. We got to make the plays. And they didn't. So the Chiefs got picked off. And then last night, ex-Eagles Super Bowl winning coach Doug Peterson got beat by the Cincinnati Bengals. Sans Joe Burrow. The backup QB comes in Browning and goes just up and down the field against that Jaguar defense. Not good. And in late stages of the game, Trevor Lawrence turned an ankle. He had to be helped off the field.
That looked bad.
Didn't know the extent of it. By the end of the Monday night broadcast, they were saying they think it was just a sprain, not high ankle sprain. They didn't even know his ankle when he was helped off the field, had to be taken off the field. So it didn't look like it was a massive injury. That means he's going to miss a ton of time. I'm not telling you he's guaranteed to play this upcoming week, but it's still to be determined. But they weren't supposed to lose at home last night to the Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals. So Eagles aren't the only team that got picked off this past week. Just anyone associated with the Eagles, either the Eagles themselves, Andy Reid, or Doug Peterson, were the biggest upset losers of the week. All right, we'll talk about the upset. It wasn't an upset because the 49ers were actually the favorite in the game. The loss to the 49ers is start to look ahead to the Cowboys coming up on Sunday with our next guest. Tommy Lawler joins us here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their Fantasy Pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
John McMullen and Jody McDonald, your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. We got our pal from EaglesBlitz.com. That's IGDLES Blitz.com. Fun Eagles website that you should be checking out, Birds fans. It is run by, contributed by, basically is Tommy Lawler, who joins us here on Birds 365. Tommy, you've been watching the Eagles for a long time, reporting on them, covering them as a beat guy. As ugly with a good Eagle team, we've seen some ugly Eagle games when they weren't a real good team, but this is a team with the best record in the National Football League. You ever remember one like this where we were as high on the Eagles as we were and they had earned it, and just to get their lights turned out by the opposition? I don't know. I've been in town 33 years. I don't know that I've ever remembered a game like this one.
The first one that comes to mind is back in 2004 when they played the Steelers midseason. The final score was 27-3 in that game, but if you watched it, it might as well have been 127-3. I remember watching that play, and Darwin Walker on one run play the Steelers had was driven back like 12 yards off the ball on an inside run. And I just started laughing. I was like, that just tells you the Eagles are non-competitive. When their defensive tackle is 12 yards from the line of scrimmage on an inside run, they got physically dominated in that game. The scoreboard didn't reflect because Pittsburgh just ran. They just said Eagles aren't going to beat us no matter what we do, so we're just going to run the ball and work the clock. That was a physical domination, and that team went on to go to the Super Bowl. So obviously,
did Darwin make the tackle at least, Tommy? 12 yards down the field.
Lord, no. He was a casual observer on that play. Yeah, that was. I literally remember reviewing. I mean, this goes back to the days when you tape things on VCR.
Yeah.
I'm sitting rewinding the VHS, and I was like, "What is he doing back there?" that was a rough day. There was not a lot of positive things to say. I guess one of the key things, nobody got hurt. Well, that's about the best thing you can say about Sunday as well, right?
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, obviously the scare with the concussion, but it looks like he's okay. So yeah, that's a positive because obviously you got another big game. You can't feel sorry for yourself, but I think I've had a tough time getting to the offense, and there were plenty of issues with the offense, but I can't get past the defense, Tommy. I do want to ask you a Hurts question, but I'll get to that. Defensively, when you look at this game, if you're Sean Desai, you just blush it and say, all right, we had a bad game, or is this indicative of something much more?
No, you obviously embrace it. That's one of the things that Nick Sirianni has preached, and all good coaches do, is accountability, right? Let's not just pretend this was a fluke and move on and hope things get better magically. I tried that in my own life, and it doesn't work too well. Hopefully the Eagles are going to be smarter than that. So what they have to do is sit there, and Nick Sirianni made a great point in his press conference yesterday about missed tackles were a huge issue.
Yeah.
And the average fan says, tackle better. Well, you can't just, don't just yell tackle better and the player tackles better. Why did they miss the tackle? The one image we all have is Nick Morrow reaching for Deebo Samuel and Deebo running right through his arms and going for a long touchdown. You can't lunge. You can't reach. You can't grab at a guy like Deebo Samuel. That's a 220-pound dude who runs hard, has speed. Now, you've got to bring your feet, get your body into him, wrap up, and put him to the ground. You cannot reach for him. If you think about, there was a crossing pattern where Bradley Roby, I'm going to put tackle in quotation marks because I don't know what that was. He just tried to hit a guy with his shoulder, and I yelled at the TV, "Are you freaking kidding me?" I mean, Bradley, that stuff, you don't get away with that in the freaking Pac-12. This is the NFL. Shoulders against.
How about the Big 12?
Yeah, right. You've got to wrap up. He did not try to wrap up. He didn't get his body in the right spot, and so tackling. They'll go over the techniques of get into the proper place, use the proper fundamentals, have your feet with you, get in position, wrap up, bring those guys on. And like the coaches always like to say, one of the things that helps tackling is having guys fly to the football. What you saw on Sunday was a lot of individual effort.
Yeah.
So you have Nick Morrow miss that tackle on Deebo, and Deebo's off the races. Where's everybody else?
That's what I said. They were blaming, and I don't know if you heard, Tommy. Sorry for Jody. I wanted to follow up, but Nick got credited with Nick Morrow with an insane amount of yards after catch by PFF. You're not the only one. No. I mean, when you have those bubble screens, you gotta rally to the ball.
Absolutely. And technically, the whole point of the safety position, you're the fail safe for the defense. You're at the back of the defense. Nobody should get behind you, right? So, if you have guys breaking off long plays, where were Reed Blankenship? Where were Kevin Byard? And part of that, we have to give credit. Kyle Shanahan is the best play caller.
Yes.
Well, right?
I say it all the time. All the time.
Is a talented young defensive coordinator. He went up against the master, and he got owned. There's just no question about it. Sean Desai will learn from that. You have to pay the bills. Sometimes you don't learn always by having things go your way. There's going to be bad days. Buddy Ryan had some days where he was embarrassed with what his team did out there.
Yeah, but Buddy never admit to that. He'd say, "Dare you to name the day." You might believe it, but he never believed that to be the case.
He'd never say it out loud, but somewhere in the back of his head, there's a small room of reality. But yeah. So listen, give Kyle Shanahan, the Niners, a lot of credit, and then the Eagles have a lot of blame in that as well. It was just a perfect storm for just a bad day.
And Johnny and I kicked this around a little bit yesterday. He gave the Eagles defensive front line a pass. I didn't. The back seven was the much bigger problem in the Eagles defense on Sunday. Nobody argues that, but part of the game was coming in was the 49ers offensive line, except for Tristan Williams, beatable. They're four worst players on offense, and there are four other offensive linemen. How did the Eagles get so little pressure on him? If they're supposed to be able to eat up on the 49er offensive line, didn't come to fruition. Purdy got his 3-second boom out, hit a guy in stride, off to the races. Where was that defensive line? And I feel legitimately concerned that they're overtaxing some of their players, that they've been a rotational team forever, certainly since Sirianni got here. And I don't know if that caused the bad penalties that Josh Sweat took. Got to try and line up on sides, not offsides. And Hassan Reddick made a great play first series. And then afterwards, how many times did he really make Brock Purdy's life difficult? I fear they're having to use their defensive ends too many snaps, Tommy. Am I over-exaggerating here? Is this we know it's the strength of the team, so should we just leave it alone, or do we have to look at that too and go, yeah, we've got an issue with our D-line as well?
There's a lot of, you asked about 10 different questions there. So there's different layers to that. So first of all, I haven't gone back to really study the game thoroughly. So you see when you rewatch the game, the difference in pressure and sacks. And I feel like they affected Purdy. They only sacked him twice. I felt like they affected him more than that. And
they affected him to the tune of 148 passer rating?
Yeah. Listen, if you get back there in 2.5 seconds and the ball's gone, you've done your job if you got back there in 2.5 seconds. If the ball's out quickly, now that's what I've got to go watch. Was he holding the football? Did he get it out quickly? And then one of the things that I wrote before the game was if the Niners can neutralize the Eagles defensive line through scheme and then winning blocks, then they'll have a good day. And think about the long touchdown on the screen. He has held the ball for what, a second and a half? That ball's out. You got a 50-yard touchdown. So that's going to boost your rating. That's going to boost your numbers. The defensive line, they could have the best pass rush in the history of the NFL. And it wouldn't have done a bit of good. So give the Niners credit for scheming to get things done quickly. But I agree with you. The defensive line, they looked dominant those first 6 plays.
Yeah.
They got to Purdy. They pressured him. They made him uncomfortable. There were some other plays where he was pressured and a little uncomfortable, but it wasn't happening enough. And what I don't know is, was it that they were getting blocked? Was the ball getting out quickly? Was it good play calls? I've got to study the game to kind of get a better feel for that. Listen, the Eagles defensive line has to really impact games. If you go back to the first Dallas game, they got a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott. Terrence Steele might as well have been a turnstile at right tackle, right? And the Eagles had sacked him 5 times, got like 10 quarterback hits. They didn't get nearly that much impact yesterday. The other flip side, San Francisco only threw 27 passes. So, listen, Purdy wasn't dropping back and throwing the ball left and right. He didn't have to. They were getting these giant chunk plays.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, Jody and I always have that sack versus pressure discussion. I'm more towards your camp. I'd lean towards that camp. This is a perfect example of it. Brock's getting the ball out on time. I'm going to upset Eagles fans. I usually upset Jody when I talk about Brock Purdy, but I'm going to upset Eagles fans. Brock's getting the ball out on time. San Francisco had 3 sacks. None of them were the offensive line's fault. Jalen Hurts holding on to the ball forever.
Yeah.
Forever. And that was going to be my Hurts question. This is where I'm going to upset Eagles fans. Jalen Hurts is a great player. We all know that. MVP candidate for the 2nd consecutive season. But there are a bunch of reporters in the press box who started the conversation that, could you imagine Jalen Hurts with the Niners playmakers and Kyle's scheme? Like, he doesn't have playmakers, and Nick Sirianni's a terrible coach.
Did they say that anywhere within listening distance of A.J. Brown? I don't think so.
Yeah, A.J.'s on the field. And I said, yeah, he wouldn't be a fit for the San Francisco offense because the ball's got to come out. Ball's got to come out on time. That's not Jalen's game.
No.
Is that a detriment at times?
Sure. So Jalen is a playmaker, right? And if you look at Brock Purdy, he's a point guard. He distributes the football.
Yes, Tommy. I've been
Exactly.
saying it all week.
So he's the point guard, and it's like people want to say he's not that good. You know, he's
very good.
Let's give it a basketball comparison. So if he's the point guard and he's got an all-star guard beside him, an all-star forward, and an all-star center, and he's getting him the ball and he has 10 or 12 assists a game, and those guys are just lighting it up. Well, it still takes a talented person to get those guys the ball to in positions to make their shots. And if you look at Jalen, Jalen's kind of the combo guard who's going to come up the floor, and he's going to average 28 points a game and 8 assists a game. And he's going to make plays, and he's going to distribute the ball and just kind of get things done. Jalen's a playmaker, and sometimes to make plays, you have to hold the ball, you have to be creative and go outside the structure of the play. When it works, it's awesome. I mean, we remember the touchdown to Zacchaeus against Buffalo.
Yeah,
it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
It's awesome. Brock Purdy ain't doing that if you give him 100 attempts. That's not happening once. Jalen does it, and you sit there and go, wow, that helps us win a big game. But there's other plays where Jalen's hold the ball, like the play inside the red zone. You're like, just throw the ball away and go to the next down. Second and goal is not the end of the world. Third and goal is not the end of the world. Taking a 15-yard sack, oh my goodness. I was coaching him up as best I could. He just wasn't listening. Get rid of the freaking football, Jalen. Come on. I'm an idiot. I know that.
If Brock Purdy's a point guard this year, he's Magic Johnson because he's playing on an MVP level. We're not talking about a guy who racks up 14 assists and 8 points. No, he's. You
saying he's better than Steve Coulter? Come on now, let's.
I compared him. I compared him to Mo Cheeks and the great Sixers teams.
There you
go. Mo's in the Hall of Fame, and Jody took that as a criticism. How is that a criticism?
Maurice Cheeks was awesome.
Yeah, exactly. But he is what he is. And that's why scheme.
What he is an MVP candidate. Yes.
Yeah, but he's in the right scheme, the right philosophy, the right coach, the right play caller who takes advantage of his skills. That's a big part of it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what you're supposed to do. But
do we say that about Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid?
Are we going to compare Brock Purdy to Patrick Mahomes? That's where I stop. Patrick Mahomes is different. Patrick Mahomes is Steph Curry. Patrick Mahomes changed the game.
He's a unicorn.
So when we're talking about NBA comparisons, he changes the game.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not comparing Brock Purdy. That again is not an insult. Brock Purdy's having a better season. I'll ask you, Jody. He's having a better season statistically than Patrick Mahomes. Who'd you rather have?
This year? Brock
Any
Purdy.
year.
Oh.
Any year.
We're talking about if you're saying who's had a better career to this point. Of course,
I can't help you if you say Brock Purdy at
Do you guys
any
drug
stage.
test?
Yeah, exactly. I use Tommy. I mean, that's absurd. No offense. That's Patrick Mahomes.
Well, we'll see at the end of the year who has the better year, Brock Purdy or Patrick Mahomes.
No, but you're missing the point. If Brock Purdy's throwing the football to Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Noah Gray,
their best receiver right now,
then you're looking at 17 points a game, right? He's got a great play caller, but he's also got those elite playmakers. Though all you got to do is look back to the Eagles and Chiefs game. The Chiefs playmakers didn't make plays, and the Niners playmakers made play after play. It was like taking your turn. The Chiefs just don't have playmakers right now. That's why Patrick Mahomes, his numbers are down. It's not that he's less of a player. He's as good as he ever was. He just doesn't have the weapons right now.
And I say I'm in the moment. I'm in the year. And right now, Brock Purdy is playing the best quarterback in the National Football League. So that makes him the MVP of the National Football League.
See, now why do you have to say that? Because you're just going to get Dak Prescott mad and he's going to go do something insane on Sunday. So.
If he does, then that's on the Eagles, which, oh, by the way, if you want to jump ahead to the Cowboys, we talked about matchups and the Eagles having no answer for what the 49ers wanted to run. The Eagles beat the Cowboys just a couple of weeks ago, but CeeDee Lamb owned the Eagles. 191 yards. I remember John saying the next day they threw it to him like 12 times. They should have thrown it to him 18 times. That they stopped throwing it to him, which was foolish. They should have just continued to give him the football. Couldn't agree more. What's the answer for CeeDee Lamb this week for the Eagles, Tommy?
Well, the Eagles will have Bradley Roby on the field. If you remember last time, they did not, and slot was a huge issue. Now, Roby I was just being critical of his tackling a few minutes ago. He's better in coverage than he is at tackling. So now he's not going to come in and shut down CeeDee Lamb, but if he can just take away a couple of plays here, a couple of plays there, then all of a sudden those are drive killers. And he doesn't have to break up a pass. He just has to cover well. So Dak then all of a sudden is getting the ball to Michael Gallup, and Gallup's not a guy who's going to burn you for a huge game.
You know what? Brandon Cooks is starting to come on, though.
He is a little bit, yeah. And that's a concern. There's no question. Maybe they'll put Cooks in the slot and they'll have CeeDee Lamb work outside and attack the Eagles' corners out there. Dallas is gonna move the ball. They're going to score points. You've just got to make some plays. And if you look at that first Dallas game, the defense made just enough plays to win that game. You think about the 2-point conversion where Brandon Graham forced him out short of the goal line. You think about the sack that Josh Sweat had late in the game that changed things entirely. All you got to do is make a couple plays here, a couple plays there, and all of a sudden you can win that game, even if you give up 354 yards, 28 points, 25 points, whatever. That game was 23. You just got to make a couple plays. And the Eagles didn't do that on Sunday. They made no plays. And so San Francisco's able to pile up points. The defense should be a better match for San Francisco, or for Dallas rather. So that should help them. But again, we'll see. Dallas is red hot. They haven't played anybody worth a flip, but they're red hot. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And Bradley was okay. He's not going to shut down CeeDee Lamb. It's not like that, but he's competent. And they didn't have competency even at the position before.
They did not.
Speaking of competency, we haven't talked about the Eagles' late season attempt to get it at linebacker, Shaq Leonard. How much can you expect from Shaq Leonard this week, and even when he's here for a couple weeks? Do you expect him to be a starting linebacker on this team as we head down the stretch?
I would say he probably will end up starting. I don't know to happen this week because he's totally new to the defense. And in my mind, I don't think he's when he was with the Colts, he played for Matt Eberflus in that scheme. And then obviously Gus Bradley, those schemes I don't think are very much like what Sean Desai does. I could be wrong on that, but in my mind, they're very different schemes and I'll have a lot to learn. But they'll bring him in and they'll figure out some packages. Maybe they put him on the field in certain nickel situations, try him in coverage. That's been a strength of his in the past. And he's not going to be worse than Nick Morrow, is he? Right? So, you put him in there as long as he can learn the playbook and know a few key plays. And then after a couple of weeks, you would think that if you could get him and Zach Cunningham on the field at the same time.
All right. I'm going to undertake something very difficult here, Tommy. I'm going to try to defend Nick Morrow a little bit. He was terrible. I'm not defending him against San Francisco. But are we forgetting the other games this season too quickly? Because he overachieved. He was playing pretty well. He was playing much better than I expected. And then he had the big egg. And, is it as simple as he just had a bad game? Let's turn the page and see if he can get back to what he was before that game. Because you're not facing Deebo Samuel every week.
No, that's why I say, Sunday was an exaggeration. It was the worst possible matchup against these guys. And so if you had Zach Cunningham on the field, it would have helped a little bit. I'm not saying the Eagles would have won, but I think it would have had a positive effect. To not have him and have to go against him, it just put a lot of pressure on Morrow, Christian Ellis, and the Niners just went into a frenzy and the results were bad. If you watch Morrow over the course of the season, he's at his best as an attacking downhill linebacker. Think about the times he had sacks, right? He finished plays. He had tackles for loss.
Yeah.
He almost had the safety against Tampa. He's had plays where he's shot in the backfield. So he runs well. And generally, if he's going downhill, he'll tackle well. Where he struggles is moving side to side and reading plays. He just, he's obviously a bright guy, but, listen, getting on the field and trying to read an offense and doing that in a matter of 1.5 to 2.5 seconds, that's a specific skill that goes beyond just general intelligence. And he struggles a little bit with that. And then in coverage, he just doesn't show a good feel for things. At least we haven't seen that this year. So if you use him a certain way and let him attack downhill, then you're in good shape. If you haven't do the other things, he's struggling. The problem right now is Christian Ellis is kind of the same way. He's looked at his best when attacking downhill. Well, you can't have both linebackers attack downhill. You've got to have somebody who's in the middle of the defense taking on blockers, finding the football, and then obviously getting back in coverage, playing the passing lanes. And it just didn't happen on Sunday.
Not a good sign for this week coming up against the Cowboys because, sorry, Eagle fans, I just got to give you the stats and the fact. Cowboys have weapons. The CeeDee Lamb is the biggest weapon, but they've got other wide receivers. Pollard out of the backfield, and the guy that I just did not see coming, Jake Ferguson, he had a big game against the Eagles and has had a very good year.
Good player. He's a good
Cowboys have isn't like, all right, if you stop this guy, you keep Nick Morrow away from having to cover that play. They got a lot of weapons. So if you're going to use your linebacker in coverage, it's going to be Morrow, and he could get taken advantage of. Sorry to say, Eagle fans, but that's what they're facing, the task they're facing this week against the Cowboys. All right. Tommy, I'm going to ask you just a couple of quick questions, one-word answers, if that's okay. Who did the Eagles sign yesterday? Shaq Leonard, right. And who cut Shaq Leonard?
Colts.
And they're coached by who?
Steichen.
James Steichen. All right. Eagles might have some interest in a free agent tight end, and that would be
Ertz.
And he
said one-word answer, so I'm giving you one-word answers.
He was cut by who?
Gannon.
There you go. There could be an investigation. Somehow Shaq Leonard shakes free and lands in Philadelphia. His former head coach gets the benefit from a cut by a team, and Zach Ertz does the same thing. And in this case, Zach Ertz instigated. He wanted out. He said, let me get the hell out of here, and he even gave up a game check to do so. Why? So he can potentially go back to Philadelphia. John said the other day, and I agree with him, the team that might have even made more sense to the Eagles was the Ravens. John Harbaugh came out and said yesterday, no, we like our guys. We're good. Even though Leonard is down.
That is surprising.
Yeah. So Zach Ertz.
Maybe he knows he's got no chance. That's
listen, I haven't watched a lot of the Cardinals this year. I've seen Zach on a few plays, and he hasn't done anything special. Maybe he's washed up, but maybe that was Harbaugh's way of doing him a solid.
Yeah,
and just saying we like our guys.
Okay, here's my take on that, because you said the same thing. Somebody said social media, or said it to me on WIP last night. Zach Ertz is washed. Is Zach Ertz better than Greg Calcaterra right now, right here, right now? Would you rather have, if you're Jalen Hurts, need a play made, you got two tight ends set, you got to throw the ball, the only open guy is your other tight end, not Dallas Goedert. Would you rather throw it to Zach Ertz or Greg Calcaterra?
I'll take Ertz for several reasons.
That's all you got to know. That's all you have to know. You can't compare Zach Ertz. Oh, my God, he's nowhere near the Zach Ertz of 2018. Of course he's not. He doesn't need to be. You shouldn't expect him to be. He's 5 years older. All you need to know is he better than the other tight end we're using when we go to those formations, a guy who can catch the football? And if he's better than Calcaterra, Eagles have to bring him in today.
Yeah, we haven't. I didn't see anything before the show, so I don't know if they've scheduled anything. But
it's not official yet. This is Jody McDonald just suggesting what the Eagles should do. I think,
well, you think if they're going to bring him in, it would happen today, so they could potentially have him on the field on Sunday.
Yeah,
because why wait?
You would think
he's not getting any younger.
Here's my issue with Zach at this point, and it's got nothing to do with being washed. And Jody's right; he's got to be better. The Eagles, by the way, so out of nowhere, Albert Agwegbanon, I just like to say the name, got 32 reps more than anybody. He got more than Stoll, who had 26 against San Francisco. Calcaterra, back from the high ankle sprain, got 13. They threw the football to the tight end once. Alberto, of course, he didn't catch it.
Didn't get the catch.
They don't even look at anybody other than Dallas Goedert. And it's been that way since he's been out. But here's the problem. If you're playing 12 personnel, Tommy, and it's Goedert and Ertz, you got to play Goedert in line. They don't want to play Goedert in line. Are you going to play Ertz in line? That doesn't make sense. So you're almost forced to play Goedert where you don't want to play him because Zach's not a good enough blocker. And at this stage, Dallas is a better receiver. So you want Dallas flexed out, but you can't flex him out. But with Stoll, you can flex him out. So I don't know if the fit is necessarily there with Zach Ertz.
Well,
when Dallas comes back.
I'll disagree with you a little there. I think Zach can play inline and block. Early in his career, he was an awful blocker.
Yes. He got better.
He was embarrassing
got
in
better.
his first 2 years.
Not a strength, though. It never.
No, but he got to be. I like to use tight ends. One of the things coaches will teach tight ends is lose slowly.
Yeah.
So not even asking them to win the block, they just say lose slowly. In other words, just delay the guy.
Yes.
And he can do that. And I would qualify him, at least the last time I saw him play for the Eagles, as an effective blocker. Dallas Goedert's a flat out good blocker. Jack Stoll's pretty good. I think Zach is an effective blocker. I think he at least understands position and effort, things like that now as a veteran, where he can shield the guy, and he's not going to drive a guy 5 yards off the ball, but I think he can be an effective blocker. So I think you can still play him in line and do what you want to do with moving guys around.
If Dallas was out long term, and he's going to be back in Dallas, ironically, I would say, go get him. 100% go get him. Now he's going to be back. I'm not going to just bring him in as an insurance policy. Like,
why wouldn't you, John? You're going to lose Grant Calcaterra? Oh, my God. They could potentially lose Grant Calcaterra. What the hell are the Eagles thinking? He's Grant Calcaterra.
Jody, what I'll tell you, Jody, is you do have a locker room and you do have personalities. Jack Stoll's been there for 2 years. He's played on special teams. He's been a blocker. He's done all the dirty work.
Jack Stoll, the guy who lost his reps to Albert O this past week. That's the guy you worried about. Oh my God, we can't play that tight end less than we have. They just did.
But what sign are you sending to the rest of the team of
we need to get to the Super Bowl as a sign you're sending the team?
You're disposable.
We need to field the best 53-man roster we can.
Yeah, you do. So the question is, how much of an upgrade is Zach Ertz over Jack Stoll? Listen, I'm telling you, I would make the move. Like I'd bring him in, but I'm telling you, it's not like just a no-brainer.
Not a slam dunk.
Because obviously, if it was, they would have done it.
You guys could compare him to Jack Stoll. Jack Stoll's going to have his role. Jack Stoll's going nowhere fast. He's replacing Albert O and/or Grant Calcaterra, and if he can't understand it, and that was part of the reason I think they traded Zach, because he wasn't ready to pass the torch to Dallas Goedert. Sorry, Zach, we're passing the torch. And if that means we got to send you elsewhere, we'll send you elsewhere. And they did. So if he doesn't buy in, and I'm sure they've already had this meeting, at least on the phone, if not in person, here's what we expect. Here's the role we see for you, Zach. Are you good with it? If the answer isn't yes, an emphatic yes, then you move on and you don't even bother. But if he says, I'll do anything, I just want to get back to the Eagles. I want to see you guys take another shot at the ball. I want to be part of that, and I'll play any role you want me to. Well, then you sign the guy.
Well, I'm going to go to where I always go, where nobody goes. Roster building is a science. Howie's generally very good at it. If you're
but he's not infallible.
No, he's not. He makes mistakes all the time. If you're a third tight end on game day, you got to play special teams. And it was ironic. Nick Sirianni talked about what the offense needs to clean up yesterday, what the defense, a ton of stuff to clean up. And he said, special teams pretty good. He's like, that's been a solid unit all year. Nobody cares about it. They cared about it last year when it wasn't solid. It's been very solid this year, especially since Braden Mann has kind of taken off as the punter. Grant Calcaterra plays on special teams. He got 13 reps on special teams.
How many reps did Alberto play on special teams?
Alberto wasn't the third tight end. Grant Calcaterra was the third tight end. I'm saying
if
you're
a tight end and you're dressed when you're depicting what number 1, 2, 3, how does that affect special teams? You can play anybody you want on special teams, right? You don't have to dictate your number one tight end will not play
if you dress 3 tight ends, somebody's got to play special teams. And if nobody can play special teams,
that for me would be Calcaterra. And again, if
you're telling me what are you dressing?
Albert O,
are you dressing 4 tight ends?
No,
because you have Goddard. I'm saying you have Goddard. So
understood.
If you have Goddard, if you have
if you say you've got to keep Calcaterra for his special teams over Albert O, okay, that's your call.
No. I'm saying it's Goddard, it's Stoll, and it's Calcaterra or Ertz. Forget about Albert. Albert's not even going to dress. You're not dressing 4 tight ends. So it's going to be Goddard, it's going to be Stoll, and it's going to be Ertz or Calcaterra. That's your decision. Ertz or Calcaterra, because Stoll's not going anywhere. Who would you rather have? Is Ertz a better tight end? Of course he's a better tight end. But he's not a number 3 tight end because he can't play special teams. Roles matter, and fits matter. And I always say, wide receiver is the best example of this, because if you're a 4th or 5th wide receiver, you got to do something on special teams. And everybody wants big names every year because they love big names. Bring in so-and-so gets cut. They want big names. Somebody's got to play on these units, which have been very good this year and very helpful to the Eagles' success.
All right. You would know this better than me, John. And Tommy, thanks for just sitting in while John and I go back and forth.
Sorry. Sorry, Tommy. Sorry.
Yeah, I apologize too. Calcaterra missed several games. Who picked up his special team snaps?
I will look at them. Stoll always plays on special teams. So his numbers probably went up. But I'm looking at it.
It's probably Ben Van Sumeren. I know he was active for a couple of games.
Ben's part of the 53 now. It'll be interesting, by the way, while I'm looking this up. I'll look at the Buffalo game. Who they have to. Shaq Leonard, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned it. He's going to start on the 53. So I did confirm that with the Eagles. The Eagles haven't signed him yet. One of the reasons they've agreed to terms. One of the reasons they haven't signed him yet is because they have to figure out the roster move.
Create a roster spot.
It's probably either going to be Ben or one of the tight ends, to be honest. Yeah, Stoll played 10. Noah Tungiai was who I couldn't come up with, played 12. Noah Tungiai. So he was elevated as the 3rd tight end. So, I mean, that's a role. That's a role they have. And the upbacks on kickoff returns, not that it's important because they barely ever return a kick, but the upbacks are Stoll and the other tight end. And those are the guys who block the first blocks on the kickoff returns.
Yeah, I'd be willing to roll with Zach Ertz. Again, if he accepts his role on the team. And if he doesn't, then Zach will get put tickets aside for you for the championship game against the 49ers. You and Julie come on down. But if he accepts it and you can explain the role that you want him to play, and he says, I'm good with it, give me a set of shoulder pads, coach, I'm signing him as soon as possible.
I don't know. And you got Quez playing again. He doesn't play special teams.
Let me ask both you, Tommy, let me ask you. Last game, Quez Watkins played more snaps than Olamide Zaccheaus and Julio Jones combined. Why does the coach love Quez Watkins?
Speed, right? He's got deep speed.
So they should sign Deshaun since he's back. He signed a 1-day contract. Get him back out there on the field because I guarantee he's still got speed. Come on, it's got to be more than that.
Listen, I don't know. Sirianni's an old wide receivers coach, an old wide receiver. There's something he sees in Quez he likes. Quez frustrates the heck out of me, so I don't know what it is. I think part of it, though, we do have to factor in last week's game was an anomaly in so many ways.
Yeah.
The Eagles were so far behind. They had to play in 4 wide receivers.
Well, that's, and
you're trying to make plays and be vertical. So you want Watkins out there. Julio Jones ain't doing any good when you're down 16 and 23 points.
Yeah, Tommy's right. Like we just talked about the tight ends. Stoll would have played more than Albert if the game wasn't a blowout. He would have played more. But when you've got to throw the ball, you need somebody with some movement skills to be in the game. And I think that's why Albert and Quez played so much. And obviously it didn't work, but it's not a good sign. And Julio's banged up as well. He's not 100%. So I think all that factored in.
Right. And I know I'm simplistic and I readily admit to it. And I judge results after the fact. Quez Watkins, 4 targets, 28 yards. Somehow that speed is getting him out there with the ability to go 7 yards an attempt.
Yeah, the deep throw should have been a PI. Should have been a PI. Now he also should have went after the ball. He's got to have more savvy to come back and draw the pass interference and make it more clear. But, if that is a proper call, you see sort of some of the impact that Nick Sirianni talks about. But Julio's, remember, he was on the injury report all last week with a knee, so he's banged up. So that factored into it as well.
I think Alameda comes back for that ball and maybe draws the PI. Not so much Quest. Tommy, we are out of time. We love having you out here on the show. Thank you very much for doing so. He had some really good posts leading up to the 49er game and afterwards. I'm sure he's going to have good ones this week about the Cowboy game coming up on Sunday. So make sure you get to Eagles, IGGLES Blitz.com. Tommy, a pleasure. We'll get you up again in the next couple of weeks. Thanks, bud.
Let's try to talk after a non-blowout next time.
Yeah.
All right, take care.
You got it.
Thanks, Tommy. I was going to guarantee it's not going to be but I can't guarantee that. Dallas is good at home.
I was going to say the only potential blowout is this week, right? They're not going to go to Seattle and get blown out.
By the way, I don't think they're getting blown out, but Dallas is capable, certainly at home.
Right. They're the only team left that you would say is capable. Good choice of words by you. And, by the way, I don't think we mentioned it. We're an hour and 2 minutes into the show. In case you don't already know, Eagles are underdog again this week. And I expected it after taking the beatdown they did from San Francisco and Dallas being as good as they are at home. I expected the Eagles to be an underdog. I didn't know where it was going to fall. I thought it would be around 3. If you had asked me to project and predict ahead of time, I would have said 2, 2.5. It's 3.5. Cowboys are 3.5-point favorites at home, which means, again, on a neutral field, the Cowboys would be a favorite over the Philadelphia Eagles right now. If you believe the line moves 3 points for the home team, the Cowboys would be a half-point choice ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles. So the underdog mentality did not show itself this past week against San Francisco. Are they going back there against the Cowboys this week? We will see. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. You got Mac and Mac here on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the Medical Director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to underdogfantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's underdogfantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Johnny Mac here on Birds 365. Thanks for streaming on in. You can do us a solid and hit the like button if you're in a good mood. It's the holidays, isn't it? We got less than 3 weeks shopping left to Christmas. I think that's the case now. So,
boy, do we?
Yeah, Christmas is a Monday. Yesterday, I think, was 3 weeks out. So, yeah, we're getting dangerously close. So, share some holiday joy with your boys. Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. Like, share, and subscribe. Please hit that like button. All right.
Speaking of holiday joy, can I bring something up, Jody?
Sure.
Because I just saw your guy Mike Florio trying to stir the pot, as he's wont to do. The NFL needs to send a clear and strong message about what isn't permitted when it comes to the sideline personnel interacting with players during games. Obviously, this is about Dom DiSandro and what happened in the 49ers game. You think they're going to do something with Big Dom?
Describe do something.
Keep them off the sidelines.
A lot of different ways you can.
I don't think they're going to force the Eagles to, they might force the Eagles to say, hey, he can't be on the sidelines for the rest of the season. So let's say that. Can't be on the sidelines.
For the rest of the season or forever?
Yeah, for the rest of the season.
I think it would be an overreaction, but if they did it, do I think it's the end of the world? No, and you have much more interpersonal reaction with Dom, and you talk as you do about him, how good a dude he is, and others that I know who have to deal with him more regularly say the same exact thing. He's just a tremendous kind of guy. Will it make any difference if he is or isn't on the Eagles sideline for the last 6 games?
No, not whatsoever. But that's what the NFL is about. Like if the right person makes enough noise, and Mike's the right person, and they think it's a thing.
So the Florio, I didn't see the post yet. So he's suggesting they should take and this would all come down to interpretation. Severe. I'm picking a word here that I probably shouldn't. What was Florio exactly? Since he's just suggesting the NFL look at it, is he suggesting a punishment as well?
He mentioned, and it's your guys. I don't know if you'll remember in 2010, because I don't remember this, but maybe you remember it. Former Jets strength coach Sal Alosi.
Oh yeah.
Created some kind of issue during a punt play. He tripped Nolan Carroll, former Eagle, on a gunner on a punt play. Now that to me is much more. That's much worse than what Dom did.
Agree.
You're
on the field of play.
Yeah, you're affecting the field of play. He was suspended for the rest of the season and the playoffs and fined $25,000. I don't think that's a good example.
No. It's kind of
that's the example he gave. I assume they would just let it go and it would fester out on its own. Although Dom is very noticeable, obviously, and now people know who he is. Everybody knew who he was in Philadelphia, but outside of Philadelphia, I don't think many people knew him.
All right. So let me ask you. This is, I think, could be a fun debatable point. If you're the Eagles, Do you want Dom to make a statement?
No. Well, one, he hates talking to, and I think Marcus went up to him because Marcus wrote a column after the game, and he tried to get Dom to talk in the locker room, and he said, "I can't talk to you." And Marcus said, "You can't or you won't." And he said, "Well, I can, but I don't want to." So yeah.
Okay, and that's fine. But my question was, if there is contemplation of further action, that the Eagles think that the commissioner's going to take a stance here because Mike Florio told them to, or anybody else told them to, and we really prefer to just see this thing go by the boards. If we get Dom out front, and he says something along the lines of, "Hey, I'm a security guy. I was looking to de-escalate. That's just my nature. And I did something I shouldn't have done. I put my hands on a player. I have learned a tough lesson. And yeah, it kind of pained me to walk off the field that day because I wanted to at least be on the sidelines for my team. But I took a punishment that I earned and deserved. It will never happen again." Do you think a statement from the party who was guilty, as was Greenlaw and rightfully tossed, do you think that could persuade the NFL to not act?
No, because I think the NFL's reaction, and by the way, I'm not saying Roger Goodell listens to Mike Florio. The NFL is I always say they're very reactive. It's not a proactive organization. They're very reactive. So if they get the sense that it's becoming a thing, and it's becoming a national story, and it's becoming more of a national story because you got 49ers fans complaining about it. You got Kyle Shanahan saying, "What the hell's going on?" Blah, blah, blah. Now you got Dallas fans, what's going on, and all that nonsense. And you got Florio talking about it. So if they get the feel that it's becoming a thing, I always joke, South Park used to have a great joke about one complaint equals 1 billion people. These companies are insane. You got one guy who screams and they think, "Oh my God." If they just said, "Shut up, we're going to move on," it'd go away in however long the shelf life is. But they're not like that. And I just saw, and again, he's talking about Sal Losi and the Jets strength coach, and I think that's a bad thing. But Chris Palmer would be the hearing officer in game day operations. Evidently, he's the one in charge of people on the sidelines and all that kind of stuff. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. But and I acknowledge, and full disclosure, I like Dom. I get along with Dom, and you know that. It has nothing. He shouldn't have done what he did. But I just don't think it's that big of a deal.
Right. It could be called here, but I do. Something you said intrigued me. You said, "I don't think that Roger Goodell listens to Mike Florio," but you said the NFL listens to everybody. One complaint, he goes at that. Who does he listen to? Who do you think is the guy who actually could make Roger stop individually, take notice, and go, "Oh shoot, we got to deal with this right now"? Florio, I'd really like to know who it is.
I don't think it's a person. It's more like an ecosystem. Like, I always go back to where the NFL's troubles when it came to personal conduct all started with Ray Rice in Atlantic City, ironically. And there was no issue
because of video.
There was no issue until the video came out. Mm-hmm. And then he tried to re-legislate things, and double jeopardy came into it and all this kind of stuff. That's where they first stuck themselves, and they stuck their foot in it because they listened to the critics. "Oh, how could you do that? How?" Instead of like I always say, back then marijuana was still illegal, and you had these dumb. It just drove me insane because the marijuana penalties, the substance abuse penalties, were collectively bargained, and they were structured.
Yep.
They were structured. There was no wiggle room either way. You bailed this, you're suspended this. You bail again, bang, fine, suspension, games. very structured. The personal conduct policy, it's up to Roger Goodell.
Interpretation.
Yeah. And ironically, that particular case, that's what the players want. They want them to look into things. Ray Rice's fiance at the time, who turned into his wife. I don't know if they're still married, but she said, she spoke on his behalf. It was an ugly incident. We all know the incident, but that's what the players want. And they listened to it. He never got in trouble before. He had a great reputation, and they suspended him 2 games. And if the video never came out, the players would have been happy and blah, blah, blah. But it came out, and they tried to change it. And you had all these arguments. Well, the NFL thinks smoking marijuana is worse than domestic violence. No, they don't. You're just an idiot and can't understand the difference between a structured policy that forces you to do something and a nebulous one, which can be anything, basically, and was a bad policy. So they listen to that kind of stuff too much, and they hear it, and they get rabbit ears, and they think it's going to affect the bottom line, which nothing affects the bottom line in the NFL. They don't have to worry about anything. I talk all the time. They have the worst product in the world. It stinks. It's awful. Nobody turns it off. They love it. They're addicted. You don't have to worry about anything. Do what you want. But they listen. They got rabbit ears.
They may take that into consideration if they're going to do something above and beyond with Tom. We listen to McMullen. He said we can do whatever we want. Look at the TV ratings. Hey, Dom, see you later. Bye. You're gone for the year. I don't think that's going to happen, but you're right when you say they actually could if they wanted to. They have such a foolproof, bulletproof process and product right now. They could basically do whatever they want, and they wouldn't take a hit to the bottom line. All right, he's McMullen. I'm McDonald. We are Mac on Birds 365. We are scheduled to hear from one Chris Franklin from NJ.com next. And Chris isn't in the waiting room just yet. Where will he be? Will there be birds involved?
No, too cold. Way too cold.
I was outside this morning. It is a little bit cold. Doesn't he have an enclosed porch? Yeah, but I guess not. Maybe he's got a screened-in area out there. Chances are he'll be somewhere indoors. And Chris isn't a T-shirt maven like our boy tomorrow.
Mike's got the screened-in porch, but I think it's too cold
for him too. We shall see. Gil tomorrow. Chris Franklin from NJ.com scheduled to join us next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up, and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday. Watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
You've got John McMullen and Jody McDonald, a.k.a. the Mac and Mac guys, and we are joined by one Chris Franklin. He's coming from indoors, not his Trenton studios that from time to time. Trenton Times, is that the T in the background?
Oh, not today. I'm going from the home office today. Yeah. I'll mix it up. I'm staying home. You know, I got to rest up a little bit after watching that debacle on Sunday.
Understood. But the T I'm referring to, you've done it before.
Oh, yeah. The Gloucester County Times, yeah. Gloucester County Times, yeah.
I knew it wasn't Trenton. I don't know why I thought that, but thank you for correcting me. But no, you got a nice home office, and you look like you're ready to talk Eagles football with us for the next 30 minutes. All right. The Eagles got their tails kicked on Sunday by the Niners. We all agree to that. What's the unfixable thing going into the Cowboys this week? What is the one that we can all sit down, all watch the tape, all agree on, and we got to be better at this, but you go, but then how do you fix it? And the Eagles don't have an answer. Is there a problem that was so big and at this stage of the season can't go? They think Shaq Leonard's going to fix linebacker. We'll see. Is there something with the Eagles that was so exposed on Sunday you're going, oh, man, everybody in the league is going to target this, and the Eagles don't have an answer for it?
I think it's just overall the tackling downfield. I think that's the biggest thing when you look at it. I think when you look at the I know there's some criticism of cornerbacks, but I think it was overall as a whole back seven and in pursuit, trying to get these guys down from picking up these extra yards. And if you think that Kittle and Samuel are tough, look at CeeDee Lamb, the way he's able to run downfield and make plays that way as well too. And I mean, think about DK the following week, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. So it's tough to become a better tackling team this late in the season, but that's something that has me concerned, going throughout for the rest of the season. I mean, I think you can do some corrections. I don't think it'll be as bad as we saw it on last Sunday, but I think it's something that is cognizant and needs to be corrected.
Yeah, Nick kind of mentioned that yesterday, Chris, that they were top 10 in missed tackling metrics coming into the game and all that kind of stuff. So the advanced numbers, I was just talking even after the game, Pro Football Focus has them as the 6th best tackling team in the NFL. Tackling is kind of a lost art in the league as a whole. This is just a game where you say, it's uncharacteristic. Flush it, you correct it, like Nick said, technique, blah, 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 leverage. But when you compare them to the rest of the league, they tend to be a better tackling team. So you just say, we had a bad day.
I think it's also got to look at some of the teams they played beforehand. I think the only guy, when you look at the Bills, the only guy you really fear, like after catching the ball and moving downfield was Stephon Diggs. I know Gabe Davis is bigger, but you saw that. You just look at some of the other opponents they have. I don't think they had the players that are capable of making those plays downfield as the ability can to the extent that they can, like in the 49ers. A lot of things I think, if there's any benefit that comes from this, maybe they take a little bit more of they're a little bit more aware of their pursuit. I thought some of the angles they took on some of those tackles were late, and I think a lot of times you can't just throw. That's the one thing I just don't get with a lot of these guys. It's like in the NFL, not just on the Eagles, but overall, that they think they can just throw a shoulder and get somebody down by the legs, and you can't do that. You can't do that at all anymore. So I think if anything, I think the pursuit and the awareness of that maybe it heightens them a little bit, and maybe it helps them better get back on track. But to me, it's still is concern long term.
All right, Chris Franklin. This past game, Kenny Gainwell played 39 snaps. DeAndre Swift played 30 snaps. Why?
Well, if you ask Nick, it's about about more 2 minute and everything else. I thought they should have involved. Personally, I thought they should have involved Swift a little bit more early on, because I think the one thing, especially to slow down that 49er pass rush, is to attack them at the point of attack and run at them, especially at the edges, because the tackles did, for the most part, did a decent. Well, like Lane and Jordan, they didn't try any edges. I thought if you ran at them a little more, you can make them a little bit less effective. You start just basically tire them out a little bit. I thought that could have been to run toward that inside, but that's really the edges on there. But DeAndre Swift is too much of a weapon, and he's proven that he's done this. That you need to feed him the ball. I mean, if you made the argument earlier in the year that you wanted to save him a little bit more, you didn't want to give him the carries because you wanted him available healthy as you went along. Yeah, but these are the type of games that you wanted to see him get the ball and be that impact player that you traded for. And I just think he needs more touches, and if it's not this week, they better do it next week against Dallas. They just have to fix that way.
Yeah, I'm surprised that's so much of a thing. Everybody brought up obviously Kenny and DeAndre. DeAndre got banged up late when he got lit up by Dominique Lenoir. Alberto played more than Stoll. Quez Watkins was out there. I don't know if Quez had more to do with Julio was banged up or what. We have to keep an eye on that, but to me, that's because it was a blowout. So you want those pass catchers, and I put that in quotes because Kenny Gainwell, the third down, hurry up guy, Albert, who's more athletic than Jack Stoll, even though they don't catch the ball, but in theory, they're better than the other guys. I think it was just because they were blown out. I think if it were a close game, Swift would have gotten more touches than Gainwell, and Stoll would have gotten more touches than Alberto. Am I crazy?
I think it is tough. I think when you look at Alberto, that is something that you I think you see that you want him to be somebody who could be a pass catcher in that, and is able to do that. I think that Kenny, they love him. That's Nick's Naeem Hines.
They do love him.
Yeah, that's his Naeem Hines, and I look at that, and if you want to have, I think you use more. I just think you need more Swift. I sound like you need more cowboy. I think you need more Swift when it comes to that part. I just don't. The use is part of that.
You need more Swift.
Hey, pause. But yeah, I just look at it, and the 2 minute thing is I get why Kennedy's in a 2 minute drill, but I also think that with the ability of Swift catching the ball out the backfield, I think he just gives you more of a home run threat when it comes to it.
Yeah, again, foolish me. I go back to production and what they've actually done rather than what you think they're going to do or what your preconceived notion of them is. And Swift has just been a better back. So that's
all right. Well, let me turn that to both you guys, because Jody and Chris. Also, I kind of said, why is Jalen Hurts back in the game?
I definitely.
That was everybody.
DeAndre Swift, why are you playing these guys in a blowout game? Your key guys. Maybe that's an extra layer. Like DeAndre got hurt. We don't know. Is DeAndre healthy? I don't know. We're gonna have to see.
How much time was left in the game when Lenoir laid him out?
I don't remember. I'd have to look.
I don't know. It was late. I gotta look back in that. It was late.
It was late.
I don't think that swung why Gainwell had more snaps than.
But my overriding point is, why are you playing your key guys when the game's over?
I thought this, and that's one something.
You take Kelsey out too. Where you got to draw a line somewhere? And the first one to me is quarterback, and then everybody else we can debate. But you got to get your quarterback, your star quarterback with Marquise Mariota, who, oh, by the way, went 2 of 3. Give Marcus a thumbs up. Passing rating. You got to get him. And then everybody else gets lumped. You could have the quarterback and then everybody else.
Well, it only matters
I would
when
not
somebody.
put, oh, my God, we got to get DeAndre Swift off the field in the same category with Jalen
Well,
Hurts.
I think a lot of those criticisms are unfair. Like people were saying, you play the guys. I mean, Nick's convoluted answer was we were down 2 scores. No, you were down 3 scores. And probably shouldn't have put Jalen Hurts back in. Everybody else should play. I mean, I'm in that category, but I'm just saying for people who complain about key players playing in blowout games, can't have it both ways. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think you can. I think the quarterback is a different animal.
Especially the head injury. That was for me. Like I didn't see anyone, and I don't know if it's one of those things where they wanted to, hey, we go with a good taste in our mouth heading into next week and try to watch them and saw that scoreboard and then being a weird score, like as being deficit and stuff like that. It was one of the momentum going in there, but I thought a lot of guys, especially after Swift got hurt, I felt like, okay, that was it. Everybody's going to get pulled, and here comes the backups. But I was shocked about that.
Yeah, and maybe they should have, but they're a very competitive team. They're not used to getting beat like this, Chris. You have to really go back to the playoff game when they weren't. They were a different team in Tampa, and they weren't supposed to make the playoffs. It was a surprise they made the playoffs, and they got blown out. It was 31-0 before they got some garbage time points. I think that's the last blowout, meaningful blowout. They're not used to this, and I'm interested to see how they respond from just. To me, it's not about the loss. It's about how badly they were beaten. Do you expect them to be able to turn the page just easily?
I think for 2 reasons. One, the fact that we're not used to it. I think that gives them it's a telltale sign. Like, you know what? Yeah, they're not ready for that, and I think that's that extra fire under their butt. And it's not like they already. It's not like they need it already because they know that next week pretty much is almost the de facto who could win, who's got an easier path to win in the NFC East. So I think that it was bad enough that they already knew that they needed that game. But I think the fact they got they got a boat race, I think that definitely added a little bit as well too. And especially the way you saw some of the veterans come back and the answer they did, and some of the other guys that have been here a long time, the way they answered it, I think it's going to be a little bit more intense during this whole entire week. Because I mean, when you're winning, you sit back and relax and go, okay, everything's fine, guard down a little bit, and then all of a sudden you get beat like that. I think it just refocuses everybody when it comes something like that happens.
All right, I want to make a suggestion to Sean Desai here, since PFF decided to grade the game the way they did against the 49ers. I would not have Nicholas Morrow covering CD Lamb, because supposedly he was covering Deebo Samuel and got burned for all these after catch yards. But CD Lamb's going to be CD Lamb. And last game against the Eagles, he had 11 catches for 191 yards. John said the day after, I would have gone for 18 catches for 250 if I were the Cowboys. They didn't throw it to him enough. Maybe they listen to McMullen this time and he gets the ball thrown his way 18 times. How the hell are the Eagles going to slow down CD Lamb?
Ski the offense doing long drives. I think that's the best way to do it. No, but I think this is one of those games I'd have Slay travel. I know that there's been mixed reviews, everybody saying, I know people were saying that. I just think that you put your best on best and say, you know what? You're not going to beat us. Slay, follow him around, and then you just adjust everything else accordingly. Could that lead to communication issues in that back seven? Yeah, sure, it really could. But
they have those issues anyway, so I'm with you. They have those issues anyway, so who cares?
Good point.
Yeah,
Sean Desai's been. I talked about it a lot. He's gotten a lot of love, and I think for the most part he's done a good job in a difficult situation. But, I'm starting to think, what? At the end of the day, to go to Jody's production route, this isn't a very good defense. Who's responsible for that? Howie Roseman? When Shaq Leonard takes over, as I assume he's going to, as a starting linebacker on this team, whether it's this week, next week, they're going to have 4 guys who weren't here at the start of training camp that are starting players. Roby and nickel, Cunningham and Leonard at linebacker, Byard at safety. That's a lot. There's only 11 players on defense. Now, part of it's injuries. Obviously, if Avonte Maddox was here, it wouldn't be a problem. Nakobe Dean, though, you could say it's the injury, but was it? He wasn't playing that well. And Byard was an upgrade, but maybe that's about what you had before. Have we given Howie too much love? Who are we blaming for this mess in the back seven?
See, a lot of times I think it goes when you look at personnel wise, this goes to that outside shell where you focus on defensive linemen, focus on cornerbacks, and then everything else in the middle, you just roll with that. So I think the one thing, if anything, you think you look at linebackers, you got to look at personnel side, and I think you also got to look at the. I think it's shared. I put the side. I think Howie they should share blame on this one. The reason being, I look at the side, like if you know that your linebackers are having issues or you're weaker at that area, maybe you go to a different front. Maybe you go to a different look. I don't know if it's more, hey, let's use more big nickel or what have you, and then rely on those big defensive tackles, play them more, and hope they can stop the run a little bit, so it makes it a little bit tougher. And I just think overall, you look at that scheme as well too. So like when guys this late in the season are still having coverage breakdowns, like they're confused, maybe it's just time to scale back some of that stuff. Maybe just ramp it up a little bit more. It's reminiscent to me like with the Super Bowl, because I remember that week before when you saw a couple guys, they were trying to work out how they were trying to mismatch in the locker room. It was and they were going at it for a good 20 minutes. I was waiting for a question to ask, and I'm like, okay, and they're still going that way. And like, okay, I'll just go somewhere else. And then now you see it manifest itself again. Maybe it's just the scheme itself. When you go,
I hate the scheme. I hate it.
That's the way. Yeah. And we always, and I still harken back to Nick's opening press conference where you say, you know what, you will want to make the defense simple and so let the playmakers fast and do their thing.
And they do the exact opposite. Yeah.
And oh, by the way, John, to answer your question, with tongue firmly implanted in cheek, who do you blame? Derek Barnett. The domino effect that is Derek Barnett. Because he got paid.
Eric's gone.
That means they can't pay linebacker. And they were going to trade him. Oh, they're going to trade him. They can get something for him. They got nothing for him. And he talked his way out of town at the very end. It's all Derek Barnett's fault.
Yeah, he's joking. I'm gonna stick up for my guy Derek Barnett. I'll take it this way. I'm gonna play Drew Rosenhaus. Since Derek Barnett has left the organization, they've completely fallen apart on defense. Completely.
All right, I'll get a memo out to his agent and let him know that Derek played. Did you know Derek played this week? Did you even know?
I did not.
He did. He got in 14 snaps for the Texans. Guess what? Didn't hit the box score. He didn't take a penalty. I got to give him the thumbs up for that one. No stupid penalties. 14 snaps. You wouldn't have known it unless you were actually.
Texans won the game, though, didn't they? Did the Texans win the game?
Because of Derek Barnett? Come on.
Hey, man. The Eagles have fallen apart. The connection is clear.
You want to give me an Eagle Texan bet between now and the end of the season who gets more wins?
Hey,
I'll take Philadelphia, McMullen. If you're ready to back the Derek Barnett Texans in a bet with the Eagles, since you're comping them now, I'll take as much as you want to put up.
Obviously, this is shtick, but hey, the Texans are a game behind the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm just saying. Don't sleep on that team.
So are the Colts with Shane Steichen.
Yeah.
He is. Now,
now that's legitimate.
We'll get the ire of the streamers here. Shane Steichen has a better chance to win Coach of the Year than Nick Sirianni does. You heard it from my lips. I'm not telling you I would vote this way, but I'm telling you the way that the voting has gone forever. Shane Steichen can win Coach of the Year. Nick Sirianni has no chance whatsoever.
When you look at what Nick last year, you look at the odds Nick had, and then you look at this year, the odds Nick had, even with the top one. Yeah, and I don't know what everybody's just probably go, oh, he had a better roster, that one, and look what the other guys did. That's always going to be. As long as this Eagles team is really good like this with all of the guys they have on the roster, he's going to get slighted.
Correct.
It's always going to be tough. Now you bring up Shane, but that brings us into Shaq Leonard, Chris. I mean, the Colts are in the playoff hunt, as Jody pointed out. They weren't supposed to be. And they got a real shot and they said, you know what? We don't want Shaq Leonard. What does that tell you?
I think they're trying to go young and trying to go, especially build everything around Anthony Richardson. And even with the linebackers we talked about earlier, how it not being a position that everybody really cares about. Look at the money he's making. I think they're like, you know what, let's just cut bait now and just have everybody roll with this and try to build this young core.
My only argument, real quick, my only argument with that is they already paid him the money. They were going to pay him the money. I mean, you cut him after the season. We know that's coming. But why not use him if he's giving you something when you're trying to make a run towards the playoff? That's a little bit of a concern to me that they said, you know what, we're in the hunt, but we don't need this guy. That's a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, but you got to keep it in the exact context too. They were 5-5 when they cut him. Now they're 7-5. Now they're legitimately in it. When they cut him, they were 5-5, coming out of a bye.
They were still in it, but yeah, it's looking better because they won a couple games. But I don't know. I think PFF had him as 61 out of 85 or something.
I'll sing a narrative for you here, and I don't know it to be the case, but I'm just playing along here. He was a borderline beloved figure in Indianapolis.
Oh yeah.
And they had a guy, right? Yeah. They had a guy who had outperformed him, and they said, "How can we sit the better player and tell Shaq, listen, you're down to 10 snaps a game or something? We'd rather cut him and let him do what he wants, and as a reward for his years of service here in Philadelphia, rather than keep him as a back."
All right. Jody's giving you a positive spin. I like it.
I'm trying.
It sounds like Zach Ertz situation. This Indianapolis Colts Zach Ertz situation. It really is me.
Zach Ertz, is he coming? Chris Franklin. Is he next?
Before yesterday, I would have said there was no way, but now the fact the Ravens are out, they basically effectively said he's out. I think it's in play. I don't know how, because this team barely uses 12.
They don't even throw the ball to anybody not named AJ, Devontae, or Dallas. They don't even throw the ball to anybody else.
And I'm looking like how I'm trying to figure out how it works. Like, okay, you add him on the field. Okay, who are you taking snaps away? You taking away? I know you can say, oh, well, Quez, but you know how much they use Quez for the spacing part. Olamide they love for the blocking part and his ability to make big catches in certain situations. And then you know how much they love Julio. So, like, who are you going to – I'm looking at how you're going to incorporate and get Zach the targets that he would like. And then I'm also worried about, do you have Goddard going like, oh, this guy's back. I used to be the number one. I know I'm number one now, but does he start siphoning some of my catches away? Like, I think it's just you're looking in those situations.
You know, it's not about the catches, Chris. It's about – I brought this up before to Jody, and Tommy Lawler was on the show. If you're playing 12 with Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert's got to be the inline guy. And he doesn't want to be the inline guy. That is the problem. That is the problem to me. And it's like, Tommy was like, Zach's, and he got better. Zach was a really poor blocker when he first got here, but he got better and he worked at it and he deserves credit. But if you have Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz and one of them's got to be in line, it's got to be Dallas.
Dallas is a better blocker.
And that's going to piss off Dallas.
Yeah, see, I disagree with that. What is the drop-off from Jack Stoll being an inline guy and Zach Ertz being an inline guy? How much worse are they? Because, again, my whole thing about Zach is you lay it out for him before you ever sign. Zach, here's what we're going to use you for. It's this, that, the other thing. It's not going to be this, that, or the other. That you used to be the tight end here. This is what we expect of you. This is how we're going to use you. If you're good with it, we can continue the conversation. If you're not, we'll get you tickets for the championship game. But we're moving in another direction. He has to buy in 100% to the way you're going to use him. And if that is when in 12 personnel, he's the inline guy, he has to go, I'll give you everything I got blocking. I'll do whatever you guys ask. If he doesn't, then you move on. But I want to at least ask him that question.
Well, I almost said something that would have been a bad comparison, but no, it's like, man, saying like I look at, and I'm not, and before anybody says it, I'm not comparing Grant Calcaterra to Zach Ertz whatsoever. I'm not doing that. But it's a similar to me. They're a similar type of guy. Like I'm not going to use a receiving guy who could potentially be inside and potentially hurt you when it comes to the blocking aspect, and I just want to get that. He's better. I'd rather have him, if that's the case, I'd rather see him split him out and just say, okay, you take over the Julio role and you play that. If that anything like that, okay, yeah. But I just look at it away like if I'm going to have to use them inside, like and try to block on those. If I need third and short, fourth and short, and you're trying to run a pass play on that, I just don't see if you keep leaving the urge to block and letting Goddard go out there. It's just to me, if you're going to bring him here, he needs to be a part of this in the passing game and frequently enough to warrant him being there for to outweigh all the potential issues that can happen later on.
Zach Ertz ain't playing the Jack Stoll role. I mean, it's Jack's not Mark Bavaro. He's not, if you use current tight ends, he's not Josh Oliver, 265 pounds. But he's a better blocker than Zach Ertz. And if you have, and Dallas, by the way, is a better blocker than both of them. He's a better blocker than Stoll. But Stoll's good enough to where you can feel comfortable saying, all right, this is not so weighted that I can play Dallas, who's a great receiver as well. I can play him in the flex role and put Jack in line. Nick's too good of a coach to do that. Put Zach, if he's got those two in the building and he's going to play them at the same time, Zach's got to be outside, Dallas has got to be inside. Then you're screwing up with the chemistry, and Dallas Goedert's not going to be happy.
All right, Chris Franklin, here's my last question for you. And I already put the CD Lamb jinx out there that I think he's going to get 15 targets on Sunday. He's the one guy you got to stop. If you're Shane Steichen, you can't let CD Lamb beat you. Flip side it. Micah Parsons is a game wrecker. He had a sack and a half against the Eagles the first time. He didn't wreck the game, but the Eagles had a tough time handling him. He had certainly an impact on the game. No one else on the cup. I guess Deron Bland because he gets pick six. Oh, by the way, Geno Smith lit up Deron Bland the other day. A one-armed Geno Smith who couldn't throw the ball.
Geno was hot, man. He was hot. He played a great game.
You want to talk about point guard. You don't think Purdy throws the ball well. Compared to Geno Smith, he's got a laser attached to his right shoulder. Geno is throwing ducks up there, and they kept landing in. Well, they got guys who go up and fight for the ball, unlike Quez Watkins. So just keeping it in its proper perspective. How do you keep Micah Parsons from blowing up this game? If you are the Brian Johnson, how you scheming? What are you doing? You're asking specific guys to do specific things. He's the only one who scares me from the Dallas defense. They're a solid unit. I'm not saying they're a bad unit, but there's only one guy who legitimately scares me. That's Micah Parsons. How do you keep him from blowing up the game, Chris Franklin?
Looking back at that last game when those two teams played, I thought the biggest thing was what Hurts was still dealing with that knee issue, and he wasn't as mobile as he was beforehand. And you saw when they had success with him against it, they were able to play him in space, utilize that the zone read and the RPOs, all that stuff to get him in space to make Micah just sit in space and like, okay, I don't know. I think that's the way. If you make him think and he's out and has to make a decision between two, I think you can really slow him down. And I feel comfortable enough that you're able to do that now with the way we've seen Hurts run, and he looks a lot more effective. I think that's how you do it. And then I don't know. I just have a feeling there's no inside info, whatever. Feeling we've seen the Eagles use that slant and go a lot recently in these games.
Yeah, it was back. Yeah.
I could see you do. Call me. I don't know that first play of the game. I know we're talking about running and establishing the run early on. I think that's the perfect time to go at him. You can get an early lead, especially if you get the ball first. Slant and go against Bland because he's going to bite because he's very aggressive, which is going to be nice, but he can also lead to what happened last week. And you have
you can take double move. Same thing with Trayvon and Trayvon Diggs when he's healthy. Double move him. A wise man who likes to avoid all extremes, I'll say that, once told me, if you can't block them, read them. And that's sort of Micah Parsons. It was ironic, Chris, evidently he didn't even do the right thing on the play where he won the game. And he's so good. He was in there 1.4 seconds, which is pretty stinking amazing.
When that was explained, the fact that I was like, and I went back and looked at that, and I was like, You know what? Yeah, you see it. Like
they're both at the C gap. I'm watching it. I'm like, damn, they ran. They didn't run what they wanted to run, and he was back there in 1.4 seconds.
How much you want to bet they screenshotted that one? That's being used next week. It's some variation of that. I got it.
All right, Chris Franklin, I'm going to ask you, hold you to something you just said about Ertz, that he's now running the ball better again, somehow for 20 yards this past week. His average is 40 yards a game. He's got 11 games, 430 yards. So 39 yards a game. If you want me to set the over-under at 38.5, I will. Jalen Hurts rushed for more than 38.5 yards, better than average game against the Cowboys this week.
38.5. I'll check the under because I think it's going to be like 32, 30.
Then how is that a key to keeping Mr. Parsons from blowing up the game? He just told me Jalen's got to run it to keep Parsons.
Because I think it's going to be a lot. I think it's going to be a lot of 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 3s, and stuff like that for it. So that way, that is, and that average, though, the tush push got. That's one thing. He might get the touchdowns. That average goes down big time. But I think.
Yeah, that's why I didn't go average. I went total yard.
Yeah. Yep.
Because Jalen's average, you can't even rely on because he does as many tush pushes he does. That screws him. So that's why I'm saying total yards 38.5. If you're telling me Jalen's running is a key to keeping Parsons from breaking up the game, he's got to do more than 38.5.
Hey, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4s. You're inside there. You know, you look at that play sheet, and Cowboys got to worry about you passing the ball with those receivers. I'm going the edge. 35, get 5, and we know how much he slides when he gets down. Like, field, see somebody around there. All right, go out of bounds. He'll just keep the drive going that way. So yeah, that's why.
Remember, Nick's an esoteric guy. He's talking about Quez Watkins stretching the field. It's the threat of Jalen Hurts pulling the football that affects.
Yeah, but John, you and I both have said the threat has not been there this year, and
it was not. Job. It was not there. You know when the threat? It was not there when he was hurt. It was there early in the season. Again, the effectiveness wasn't. He wasn't as effective, but people were threatened by it. And now people are threatened by it again. Basically, look at DeAndre Swift's good games. That's when you know the threat is there. That's when the threat is there. That's when he's got space. And that's when – now, last game was a blowout, so they stopped running the ball. That was part of it. But so you can kind of throw that one out. But yeah, when the threat is there, there's a lot more space for the running backs to do damage.
We know the threat is back because of the 65 yards against Buffalo. That's what you're telling me.
They had a good game against Buffalo, didn't they?
Yeah, he did. He had a good game. He ran for 65 yards.
Yeah.
So, but that's the one game that you would go, all right.
Well, no, he came back. He came back from the bye without the knee sleeve, and he was feeling better. And yeah, it was there last week as well.
He didn't run it against Kansas City.
No, but the threat was there.
That was the game after the bye.
But the threat was there. And last week as well, it didn't manifest itself because it was a blowout. But so you don't know. But he's healthier and he's comfortable, and he'll run it if he needs to run it. And that helps the Eagles running backs. That's all I'm saying.
We're all talking theory here. In theory, you agree, I agree, Chris agrees. Now they got to go do it. And it is all going to be determined by how the Cowboys defend it. Do they show him the type of respect that they should with his ability to make a play? Chris Franklin says under 38.5. Yeah, I have to agree with you. For a different reason, Chris. I don't think he's back. I think the knee's still bothering him, and I think we saw that this
Here's what I'm going to recommend, Chris Franklin. At C. Franklin News, number one, I'm going to recommend reading everything Chris writes on this particular team, NJ.com, everywhere. You can see him in South Jersey. I'm going to recommend that, and I'm going to recommend no outside the numbers throws to Deron Bland's side. Don't even mess with it. Don't even mess. You can go with the double move and go up the field. Nothing outside the numbers because he's got.
I think just do one.
You better be on time. You better be on time if you're trying to throw it out on Deron Bland.
Yeah, you just do one because then you can set up the slant, the screen and go. Just do one to get him in his face today. I'm not afraid you can do it, but then you just go. We're kind of going to go leery and then go. up and out on that one too. Just one. Don't live out there.
And use Quez to do it because he is the guy who draws.
No, don't use Quez to do it. Use AJ. At least AJ can play defensive back.
Chris Franklin, thank you very much. You know, we love having you on the show. We will get you up again either next week or the week after. Thanks for jumping in today.
All right, thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one now.
Chris Franklin, NJ.com, here with us on Birds 365. All right, Mac coming back. We got to put a bow on the show. Tuesday, getting close to moving on. They've turned the page. They flushed it. We'll see if that's the case. Come back with more on Birds 365 in just a sec.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
All right, we only got about a minute and change left here, Johnny Mac, before we got to make way for Billy C in the Power Hour here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Will this question be asked the way I asked it to Chris Franklin? Kenny Gainwell got more touches, more snaps than DeAndre Swift. Why? Will that question be posed, if not the exact same way, very similarly to the offensive coordinator today and coordinator Tuesday?
Yeah, I assume it will be. It was asked yesterday to Nick, and he gave the answer I expected him to give because of the game and the situation. And I think he's not lying. And I think Brian's going to say the same thing. So I think it's going to be asked. It was a blowout, so they had their hurry up, pass catching, blah, blah, blah. Now you can argue, why is Kenny Gainwell in those packages? Those are his packages. So I think, you know, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the game, I think Gainwell, if you look at the maybe the better framework is why is Kenny Gainwell in those packages?
Right.
And the answer to that is, as Chris said, they really like Kenny Gainwell. Should they? It's a debatable point, obviously. Hasn't had a great season. But he's their best pass protector. That's a big part of it. And it is what it is. They don't, I always say about the running backs and linebackers, they don't value the positions. They don't pay the positions. So you can't expect to have Christian McCaffrey or Fred Warner. That's what happens.
I'm sorry, John. I can't expect the best guy to play. Can I expect him to give me Christian McCaffrey results? No, I get that. But if I've seen enough in 11 games to judge which is the better player all around, everything in, if you're pass plays, Swift has been more effective in the pass game than
not as a blocker. Not as a blocker. He has.
All right, now you're gonna make me give you an assignment. I need to know how many plays that Gainwell was in did he actually stand and block. If you're gonna hang your hat on that,
and by the way, before we go, because I want to get this in, Lane Johnson is the Eagles nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, which is a big deal, obviously, in the NFL. So, Lane Johnson, congratulations to Lane Johnson. And as I said, that's a very big thing in the NFL. So 32 nominees, obviously. So it's not an easy award to win. But last year, I believe it was Brandon. This year, it is Lane Johnson.
Good
luck. There you have it.
Lane, not surprised that he's nominated for such a prestigious award. All right, you want to be back with us tomorrow when John McMullen answers my question, how many plays did Kenny Gainwell stay in and block? How big a difference did that make? If that's the reason Kenny Gainwell's playing more. I need to know how many times they actually asked.
And by the way, I'll be first that neither are good at it. Neither is Emmitt Smith, but he's their best.
I'm not arguing that he's not the best. If you tell me he's the best, he's the best. I believe it.
They think it's not important what I think.
If he played 30 some odd snaps and he stayed in the block 4 plays, then what are we talking about here?
I mean, that's a third down back. That's not only the Eagles. If you're a third down back in the NFL, you got to pass protect. I mean, that's part of the role. Again, roles matter, and that's part of it. And it doesn't matter. It might be 10 one week. It might be 4. It might be 2. You might be behind, and everybody might be going out in patterns and empty sets. But if you're in that role, you got to be a pass protector. And the bottom line is the Eagles don't have any good pass protectors, but he's the best of the bad lot.
Right. I stand by what I said. If the amount of times that you're actually asked to do it in a game is, then I don't care if you're the best pass protector. I don't care if you're the best pass blocker in the league. If you're going to do it 8% of the time in the snaps you play, who the hell cares?
I mean, every NFL coach cares. I tell you that. If you're in that role, you better be able to pass protect, because if you get your quarterback killed, oof.
I would suggest if Nick Sirianni is of that mindset, that he should be able to evaluate on his fly. Can't just say, hey, this is our third down back, and he's our third down back all year because we decided that way back in the preseason.
Well, DeAndre could, and because he was at least had a reputation as a somewhat better blocker in Detroit, not a great reputation, but he wasn't performing. He hasn't been a great pass protector this year, and he could get better at it. And remember, he wasn't the lead back for week 1. They changed because he earned the job. He has not earned the job as a pass protector.
Okay. Again, if you're only going to use them to pass protect on so many plays during the game, does it really matter? All right, Mac will be
matter.
Back.
Jesus, you're telling me pass protection from a running back doesn't matter in third down packages in the NFL? It does matter, Jody. It's a big, big, big deal. in third down.
How can it be a big deal if it comes to fruition 6 plays of
Do you
snaps
think the Eagles are the only team that values pass protection from running backs?
If you
There's
actually ask
32
them
out
to
of
stay in and
32.
pass protect, then yeah, I think it could be of great value. If you're not going to ask them to stay in and pass protect, and you're justifying playing a lesser productive player over a more productive player due to the fact that he's a better pass rusher, pass blocker, but then you don't ask him to pass block, that makes no sense to me. I'm sorry. It doesn't add up. I don't care what the league has been doing for 40 years. I'm looking at this year, and if you're not asking the guy to actually pass block, I'm not going to use an explanation why he plays more.
I mean,
because he's a better pass blocker.
There's, like I said, there's trying to win an argument, and there's ignoring 50 years of history. All right, if you're a third down back in the NFL, you got to pass block. That's part of the role. That's part of the job description. In Philadelphia, Washington, Dallas, Jacksonville, Houston, Denver, 32 different places. It's part of the role. And if you're not good at it,
used to be a part of a role in baseball, the bunt. And now when I take calls out, why didn't the Phillies bunt? Because nobody bunts anymore. The game changes, and you have to keep it to your own particular team.
well, people still pass protect. People still pass protect in the NFL.
With a
Now, they
running
might not
back,
be as
how
good at
much?
it. They might not be as good at it as Emmitt Smith was back in the day, which is the reason we're going way long. I apologize to Bill. I mean, yeah. I mean, come on. This is. I mean, you should put your resume in to be an NFL head coach and say, "Oh, we don't need a running back to block. We can get an extra receiver out there. Running backs never block." I mean, just put on the game last night. Running backs got to pick up blitzes all the time. All the time. All the time. They're not as good at it. They're not as good at tackling. They're not as good at a bunch of different things because the game has changed and they don't do as much of it on the college level, but it's still a big part of the sport, not like bunting, which is not a big part of the sport. Pass protection is, if you can't block people, I'll say it all the time, you can't play offense. And running back's a part of that. They just are.
Yeah, we got to go. We could argue for another 20 minutes. 5 guys, 6 guys who pass block on any given play. Running backs last. If you're telling me that that's a key element to pass blocking, a running back.
Yes, it's not as key as Lane Johnson, so it doesn't matter.
That's kind of the point.
So it doesn't matter.
All right, we'll be back here tomorrow. Mac and Mac be back in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.